Okay, I'm giving override directive A113. Go to full autopilot, take control of everything, and do not return to Earth. Repeat, do not return to Earth. Let's get the heck out of here.
Hello and welcome to EtymQuest, a channel where we look at our favourite weird and wonderful word origins through the lens of the internet. This week's episode centres on a topic very close to both of us, climate change and planet Earth. I'm not talking about some recent Gen Z anxiety, but a pressing reality affecting all life. After all, ecological collapse is not a dystopian movie premise, but a real likelihood. Don't get blown away as we tread through the deepest and darkest climate terrain in the English language. In 1972, Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme stood to give a speech at the United Nations' first major conference about the climate. It was then that he first used the word ecocide, adopting it to describe the catastrophic environmental damage sustained during the Vietnam War. Ecocide refers to the mass destruction of the environment, especially when deliberate. But Olaf's good, green and socialist ways only led him to trouble. One day, Olaf was walking home from the cinema with his wife, and was sadly shot by an unknown man, opening a mystery case that would haunt Sweden for 34 years. The term ecocide was picked up again and discussed throughout the drafting of the Rome Statute, the treaty that created the International Criminal Court during the 1990s. But 4 states, including the UK and US, decided that it shouldn't be there.
It'll start getting cooler. You just watch.
I wish science agreed with you.
While the statute has since been amended, in 2010, when crimes of aggression were added, ecocide has never been considered an international crime. Thankfully, organisations and campaign groups like Stop Ecocide are fighting to change this. That means establishing ecocide as an atrocity crime in the eyes of the law, but more importantly, changing the way we see humans and animals, realising that we're not above the natural world or function separately to it, but in fact owe our survival to the birds, bees and trees. If our current legal system is skirting the issue of climate destruction, big corporations from Unilever to Amazon are finding sneaky ways to wash their hands of it too. One example is called Greenwashing, a word that emerged in the 80s after one man's moralising on hotel towels. Best known for his research into endangered species like the bog turtle, Jay Westerveld is the man to thank. Whilst he was staying at a hotel, Jay noticed that there were signs asking guests to reuse their towels in order to save the environment. But this looked to him like the hotel was just cheaping out, and it was hardly an eco-friendly move considering the hotel's huge wastage in other areas. So that's greenwashing for you. As a play on the word whitewashing, it means you're pretending to be a tree hugger when you really couldn't care less about them. I'm ashamed to say I've seen these token signs dotted around on cruise ships too, despite some cruise companies emitting 10 times more air pollution annually than all of Europe's cars. You might remember Jeff Bezos' decision earlier this year to name a hockey stadium in Seattle Climate Pledge Arena, in a nod to Amazon's recently launched environmental fund. The Carbon Zero Stadium is part of Jeff's pledge to make companies greener with climate-dedicated grants, though we should add he's shedding less than 1% of his total net worth. What's even shadier is that the fund was announced a day before 3,000 Amazon workers planned to walk out and protest against the company's dire climate record.
Coincidence? I think not!
But that's okay, Jeff, as long as you're giving us free tickets to watch ice melt. And don't forget, Ben & Jerry's are owned by the huge corporation Unilever. Despite their Caring Dairy campaign, the ice cream group used concentrated animal feeding on their cows, fattening them up and causing premature, life-threatening health problems. And for each pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream sold, which on average sells for about $5, the dairy farmer gets 15 cents, while the average cost to produce that milk is 22 cents. As the world hurtles towards environmental oblivion, we can be sure that it's the little guys which bear the worst of it all. Extractivism refers to those activities which remove large quantities of natural resources, like gold, diamonds and oil, especially for export.
My straw reaches across the room and starts to drink your milkshake. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up!
Transnational companies and governments take these highly prized resources to sell on the world market. For example, gold gets exported and turned into jewellery. This typically happens in Latin America, but it's becoming rife all over the world. So you might be thinking, surely that's a good thing for those countries of the global south. At least they'll get money from those resources to pump back into the economy and lift their people from poverty. Sadly, that's not the case. The rich economic gains are directed abroad, while those indigenous groups living there suffer from violation of human rights, unsafe labour conditions, and conflict, not to mention the terrible environmental effects on the local soil, forest growth, and biodiversity. Extractivism has been happening for over 500 years. I mean, it's part and parcel of colonialism, though nowadays people often refer to neo-extractivism, where more ethical intervention is said to take place, though we're yet to see real success in this department. Doom and gloom aside, there's a lot to shout about Mother Nature. The word hurricane comes from the Taino word for the Carib god of evil, Harakhan. The Tainos were a late prehistoric tribe of American Indian people living in the Greater Antilles and the Bahamas. These were the guys that greeted Christopher Columbus when he turned up in the New World in the 15th century. It's been widely spread that the Tainos were completely wiped out when the Spaniards arrived and essentially enslaved much of their population. But we can see from movements in Puerto Rico that the Taino people and culture survive to this day. In fact, quite a few common words from the English language come from the Taino tribe, like hammock, canoe, and barbecue. Their hurricane was actually derived from the Mayan god of wind, storm, and fire, Harakhan. Creator of humans too, his other name is the Heart of Heaven. Oddly, he is also known as the one-legged god. He has one human leg and one in the form of a serpent. No one appears to know why. When the Spanish explorers passed through the Caribbean, they picked it up and turned it into Harakhan, which remains the Spanish word for hurricane today. By the 16th century, the word shifted once again to become our present-day hurricane.
Whoa! Hurricane Katrina! More like Hurricane Tortilla!
That's all we've got for this episode. Thanks for joining us on our Etym quest, and don't forget to like and subscribe. We've also left links below if you want to learn more about Stop Ecocide and the effects of climate change on Indigenous groups.